Hello, hello, hello. Hey, hey, hey. This is Warren Redlick. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I don't know. I'm not sure if this starts when it's supposed to start, but hello, hello, hello. Uh, and thanks to the moderators. I see Mark Plot, and Mark Potocnik. So thank you for showing up. I'm going to talk mostly about Tesla today. We have the earnings call coming Wednesday. Very excited about the earnings call. Not so much about the dollar figures, but about what that means for the future of Tesla, the company. I think that's a lot more important. I think we in the community need to focus a little less on the stock price and a little bit more on the company, the mission, and the cars and the technology and all the cool stuff that's happening. So let's just dive in. Before we get started, I have supporters, people who support me on the Locals platform, which I'm going to be doing a live stream after this video, after this live stream, starting 1 hour from now at warrenredlick.locals.com. There's a link in the chat at the top of the chat, and there's a link in the description below. So we're going to talk about that. I'll put the link in the chat again just so people can see it. I'm going to talk about what it means to be a libertarian. That's the Daily Lie. That's a channel where I talk mostly about politics and occasionally or sometimes about Tesla. This time it's just going to be politics about what it means to be a libertarian. I think people don't really fully understand what libertarianism is. Hope you all can hear me okay and everything's good. And so one of the things that I do for supporters on the Locals platform, on the Patreon platform, and YouTube channel members is I invite them to submit questions in advance of the Sunday live stream. So I'm going to cover those first, and then we're going to dive in. Then a lot of these are about Tesla, and then we're going to dive into more. So Dan Frieza says, would love to see your take on the ongoing FUD concerning the phantom 50% guidance on year-over-year increases in production deliveries. As you know, Elon never said this. He did talk about an average growth of 50% over several years, but either purposely or stupidly, the former gets repeated and touted by the business media, short sellers, and the Elon haters. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, this is my take on it as well. Elon, and not just Elon, but it's the Tesla team, right? He's not alone. So Zach Kirkhorn says the same thing. It's an average of 50% or greater. Average of they're aiming for 50% or more growth per year. So in other words, you're going to have some years where at 45% and some years when you're at 60%. I personally think that 2023, in terms of vehicle deliveries, not necessarily in terms of revenue or profit, but vehicle deliveries is going to be way over 50%. Let me just break that down for you really quick. As I understand it, Tesla is at a run rate of 2 million vehicles a year. If they grow 50% production, then at the end of 2023, they should be at a 3 million vehicle run rate. That's 40,000 vehicles a week to 60,000 vehicles a week produced. So they should, if it was just a straight line, it would be 2.5 million vehicles produced for the year. And I don't think it's going to be a straight line. I think it's going to be a curve. And we have to add to it the vehicles that were not delivered in December that have been delivered now. We know all the inventory was delivered in January, or nearly all the inventory was delivered in January. Now, at the same time, you have to subtract the vehicles you produce towards the end of December that you can't deliver in time. But I think in net, there was a lot of vehicles held over in December. And that's even though the production rate will be higher at the end of the year, I think that's actually going to boost the number a little bit. So my gut hunch is that we're going to see 2.2 or 2.3 million deliveries, which is 900,000 more than 1.3 million. So that's way more than 50%. 50% would be a 650,000 increase to like 1.95 million. So I think we're going to see well over 2 million deliveries. I tend to be optimistic. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Everybody who follows me knows I tend to be optimistic. It's always possible there will be some other shutdowns or some other force majeure event that, an earthquake destroys the Shanghai factory, a meteor strikes the earth, and, an asteroid destroys the entire population. We have a global thermonuclear war. If something really bad happens, that could affect things. But as long as there's nothing really bad happening, Tesla is going to ramp production like crazy, and they're going to lower prices as needed to get every vehicle sold. So that is the key. Yeah, there's outside media, I think, tends to talk less about not hitting the 50% target. To some extent, Wall Street analysts talk about it. I think the bigger concern that I have is voices inside the Tesla community, or we'll call it the Tesla community, who are not happy about the stock price and looking to throw blame somewhere other than on themselves for making bad calls. And Elon gets a lot of that. And I guess that's natural that Elon, being the leader, is going to get that. But basically, I divide the Tesla community into now oversimplified two groups. There's the people who are focused solely on the stock, and there's the people who are interested in the company and the mission and the technology and the cars. you're excited about the cars, if you're excited about the mission, if you're excited about the company, if you're excited about the mission of, accelerating the transition to sustainable energy, then everything's going great. Everything is going great. If you're looking, and by the way, I see that there's questions and comments in the chat. I'm going to deal with the chat after I go through. This is the supporters get the people who are paying to support me on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or YouTube channel members get first bite at the Q&A. And then we're going to go into some other, where I'm actually going to talk about what I'm looking for in the earnings call. I've got a couple of things I want to talk about there as well. So and there's calls for unity within the Tesla bull community. It's like, well, wait a minute. I'm interested in the company. I'm interested in the stock. I'm interested in the cars. I'm interested in the technology. I have a Model X Plaid outside. I have a Model 3 that my kid drives. I have 2 Cybertrucks on order. I'm excited about Tesla energy changing the world. I'm probably going to have Tesla solar on my next home. A whole bunch of things like that I'm excited about. And I'm excited about, changing the world. I'm excited about bot changing the world. I'm excited about robotaxi changing the world. So I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. And the stock price, look, I own a lot of stock. And if the stock goes up, I'm wealthier. If the stock stays down when I sell the house I'm selling right now, I have more money to buy Tesla stock with. And the lower the price is, the better for me in the near term, because I'm not selling. So it doesn't really do anything for me to the stock price to be up other than make me feel better. But if the stock price stays down, so this idea that there's some need for the stock price to stay up, not if you're buying. If you're buying and you believe in the company, then stock price can stay low. So, and the idea that we need to be unified in criticizing, like that I need to be unified with people who are saying that Elon's doing a bad job or the Tesla board is doing a bad job. I don't need to be unified with people who don't give Elon the respect he deserves, who don't appreciate that if you're going to invest in a company that is run by a guy who innovates like crazy and takes game-changing risks, then you got to take what comes with that. If you want a boring CEO, invest in some other company. Apple's there for you. Invest in Apple. They're boring. I'm excited about Tesla, and Elon is an exciting character, and I'm happy for him to be exciting. Swirly says the Megapack issue seems a biggie. If the margins are 50 to 80%, as zero-sum games suggest, then more megafactories would be obvious. But what might be the supply capacity from CATL and others be? CATL is the company that supplies Tesla with lithium iron phosphate batteries. If more supply, profits would be insane. So I don't think the margins in 2022 or 2023 for Megapack are anywhere near 50 to 80%. If you look at Tesla Energy overall, and a big chunk of the driver, a big chunk of what happened in Q3 of 2022 was Megapack growth, margins are like 10%. Gross margin on Tesla Energy right now is like 10%. So if the margins are 50 to 80% on Megapack, something's happening that I'm missing. I think this is just if you look at the financials, that's my read of the financials. Gross margin on energy right now is about 10%. I think that as Megapack grows in production and volume, as they get their factory working and scaling, then I think we're going to see Megapack margins approach 50% and possibly be higher. Really simple. It's a 4 megawatt hour battery pack and priced at $100 a kilowatt hour, which is roughly what lithium iron phosphate should cost. That's about $400,000. And they sell the thing for $2 million. And the battery is the biggest component in the battery pack and the device. So if everything else costs $600,000, which seems unlikely, then you'd be at $1 million profit per unit, and you'd have 50% margins. So my guess is there's something more going on in the Megapack story that limits margins, at least in the short term. And a lot of that is you have to amortize the factory, and there's other costs that are not obvious that are added to costs of goods sold that reduce margins. So Chris Anderson says, I'm going to just address this one. He says, you can help these bulls in a constructive way. Why it's ridiculous to attack Elon, the board, or whoever. They're not interested, in my opinion. So anyway, I think that CATL definitely has the capacity to supply more. I think the challenge is really ramping up production of Megapack. I also think, this is a note, I don't know if people caught this, that there's a report that Tesla is building some sort of project in Houston that's 1 million square feet, which is very large. And my theory, only a theory, is that this is a lithium iron phosphate battery production facility. Given that the new law from US, the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits depend on domestic battery production, given that Tesla intends to use a high volume of battery cells and lithium iron phosphate in particular, and given that the technology behind lithium iron phosphate is not that complicated, I think we're going to see Tesla make lithium iron phosphate battery cells somewhere in the US soon. And this new location in Houston seems like a really good spot for it. It would make sense since I think Megapack is being made in Nevada. No, Lathrop, California. It would make sense to make those batteries closer to Lathrop, California, so I'm not sure. Uh, but maybe they're going to build another mega factory in Texas as well to build more Megapacks, because 40 gigawatt hours of Megapacks is not enough. I think that the factory in Lathrop is a step towards a next generation, because this is the way Tesla works. They build a factory, they see how it goes, they build a next generation factory that produces much higher volume, much more efficiently. So I think the factory in Lathrop is just a start. Victor Block says, with your experience driving with FSD beta and your contacts within the Tesla community, do you care to estimate when you think FSD will be solved? Why? I see a number of issues that are quite tough and need to be solved 6 or 7 years after Elon said it would be solved shortly. We'll deal with Gary Black in a minute. It's really hard to read that question. The way I see it is this. Right now, we're at a point where you have to supervise the car while it's driving. You have to actively pay attention and be ready. I just had a moment last night where it was going into a roundabout. It was approaching the roundabout too fast, and I had to intervene. It's probably the first time I thought we might crash in months, because it just did not handle that roundabout. It's not an intersection I normally handle. I was in some neighborhood visiting. A friend of mine invited me to another friend, one of their friends' house. I'd never been in that neighborhood before. This is in Vieira, Florida. And yeah, that wasn't good. So, but I would say by and large in my daily driving, that wasn't really a crash intervention, but it looked like it might be getting us close to a crash intervention. So I almost never have crash interventions anymore. That's the first time I can remember. So it's safe. It's very safe compared to, let's say, a 16-year-old or 17-year-old driver who has a driver's license, right? So it's good enough for that. The next step is when they say you don't have to pay attention, right? I mean, Elon has said there's going to be a point where they take away the nags, but where you don't have to pay attention, but you still have to be in the driver's seat and you have to be ready to take over. And that's still not robotaxi ready. Now, is that qualify for what you're looking for? I don't know. Does that level of success does that level of functioning lead to a much higher take rate for FSD? I think it does, but I can't put a number on it. It's not robotaxi ready yet. Robotaxi ready is when it can drive without a person in the car, or you can sit in the back seat while the car drives. So I think that point where they say you don't have to pay attention unless we prompt you is probably 2023. And it's just really hard to read that. We have version 11 coming. We're going to say version 11 coming within a week or two. Elon time, of course, but version 11 should be a big jump forward. I think what we're seeing in the AI machine learning community generally is that things are getting better faster. So it's really hard to gauge that one. But I'm fairly optimistic that we're going to see that before the end of 2023, and that's a big jump. And I don't think it's that far from that moment to the robotaxi level. So, and then second question from Victor, do you think you were too hard with Gary Black when on Twitter Spaces with Alexandra? I'm not sure you left it off with him. I think he was being sincere. I think I was appropriate, and I think they thought I was appropriate in the Twitter space. I asked good questions. They answered them. I don't think there was any hostility. There was a brief moment where we had a little bit of a back and forth where Gary was saying, I shouldn't say he's attacking Elon. And the next day or 2 days later, Ross was on his own channel saying that the Tesla board of directors was asleep at the wheel. And I don't know how you can characterize that as anything other than an attack. So, and I think Gary's list of criticisms outside of the space, I think Gary's list of criticisms, like criticizing the yoke steering wheel, Model S and Model X are not a significant impact on Tesla's stock. They're small volume vehicles, and they sold every vehicle with a yoke. They weren't having a problem. The yoke was not an interference. I have the yoke on my Model X Plaid. It's fantastic. I love it. I don't want to drive a steering wheel again. But they're offering both. It's a brand. That's actually a branding point to have the yoke. When people get in my car and they see it, they're like, "What's that?" It's a branding thing. These guys are saying we need better branding. Well, that's branding. So, how'd we left it off? There's a cautious effort to try to be nicer to each other. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to try to be nicer to Gary and Alexandra and Ross. It's a struggle when Ross says that the Tesla board is asleep at the wheel. But I'm trying, and I think they're going to try. And I don't follow Gary, I don't follow Ross, I don't follow Alexandra, but if they say something outlandish, then usually my friends reply to it or comment on it, or somebody messages me something, and if I see something outlandish, I'm going to reply. Um so Stephen Gillis says, I hope that's okay. And do I think he's being sincere? Well, I don't think I would not invest in his company. I would not. I don't generally make recommendations to invest in any company other than Tesla generally. I can't recommend investing in his company. It basically comes down to what we said at the end of the space, which is that the investors collectively are putting in $5 million to a company that will, after it's all said and done, have something like $3.4 or $3.2 million in assets, net assets. That's losing $1 million a year. So you're going to own a third of $3 million that has been losing $1 million a year. Now, what you're buying into that situation is you believe in Gary and you believe in his partner Dave. If you believe in them and you believe in the story that they're telling, and it's not that I believe it's not true. I don't have that level of belief that I would, I'm obviously not a huge Gary fan, right? So I don't find him credible in a couple of ways, and so it's not for me. But there's lots of people out there. If you find him credible, you think he's great, you think he knows what he's doing, if they're able to do what they say they're going to do, then there's some value there. My gut is, even on their positive side of the story they're telling, Tesla stock's a better investment than the company. It's investing in Gary's fund management company that manages funds. I personally, he's saying you're going to get like maybe a 5x, like a 3x or a 5x in 5 years. I think you're going to get a 10x on Tesla in 5 years. So why would you invest in Gary's company? I don't know. But if you believe in it, you think he's wonderful, then I guess it makes sense to you. Sorry. Steven says, which year does humanity reach 100% clean renewable energy? Which year does automobile deaths and injuries become 99% less than today? Well, so, I've got my pod car project. The current state of FSD and Tesla cars is hitting wealthy countries first. And the technology, as common with any technology, it starts with the wealthy and works its way down to the middle class and eventually reaches the poor. So, in order for humanity to reach 100% clean renewable energy, we have to cover India and Nigeria and Pakistan and Brazil and Egypt. There's a large share of the population of the world that, it's going to be a long time to get solar and wind to those places. So I think 100% clean renewable energy is 50 years away. Maybe it's less, but I mean, ballpark 50 years. I mean, just the amount of time it's going to take to create the number of batteries needed to carry the transition forward. You're talking about 2030. Starting in 2030, it will probably take 20 plus years to get enough battery packs out there to replace the existing state of fossil fuels. But as you do this, as Tesla implements what it's doing, it's actually going to make the world economy better, and there will still be uses for oil. I don't know if we'll ever get to 100% because I think oil will still have uses. There will still be, small uses, and there'll still be people racing, vintage gasoline cars and off-grid locations where solar and wind aren't available, and people will use generators. So 100% is, maybe forever. But, really getting a really large chunk of the world economy on 100% clean renewable energy, like let's say 90%, is probably at least 50 years away. What year does automobile deaths and injuries become 99% less than today? Same thing, you've got to extend FSD, and, the cars that use FSD have to extend to the poor world. So I'm building, at least in theory, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, the pod car, the single passenger electric vehicle, is designed to deliver that robo-taxis to poorer populations. Am I going to succeed? Probably not. I mean, I believe in it. Just to be clear, I believe I'm going to succeed. If you're on the outside looking in, you're like, Warren, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Okay, but I think I got a shot at getting there. And I think if I at least demonstrate a working business model, others will follow. And it should be really inexpensive to extend that kind of transportation to a large swath of the world's population once we demonstrate a working business model, because the cost of the vehicles is so low. But I still think just, the Indian market's hard to penetrate, the bureaucracy in various countries, a variety of factors can inhibit this from getting there. So I hope that answers that question. All right, let me go to Patreon. Cliv asks, how's your pod car doing? So I have an engineer in Georgia who is removing this, I think he has removed the steering wheel and pedals, and he's installing remote control hardware so that we'll be able to drive this go-kart. It's a, I don't know, 100-pound go-kart. Is it more than 100 pounds? It might be more than 100 pounds. Maybe it's 150 pounds. Fits in the back of my Model X Plaid if he puts the seats all the way forward. The second row seats all the way forward. That was a tight one, but I got it in. So that should be ready, I'm guessing, in a month or so. And once I have that, then I'll be bringing it back here. And I'm going to start making videos with it and getting to the point where I can try to do a crowdfunding round. So that's the idea. All right. I think that answers that question. And there's a solar farm apartments thing. Maybe I'll talk about another video. I'm going to build my next home. It's going to be a solar home. I'll tell that story another day. Hal says, please just list the income streams and small endeavors you know of under the Tesla umbrellas, and short comment on your thoughts if you have time. Well, other than cars and energy, I think you have Tesla insurance, which so far does not appear to be very large. You have supercharger revenue, which so far does not appear to be very large. I expect that both of these are going to become larger, but the problem is that when you think about these smaller lines of revenue, bot will come along and will be big. Robotaxi will come along and be big. And service, there's probably like leasing or something like that. I think leasing's probably included in the cars. So the biggest ones I can think of are Tesla insurance and service and superchargers. And the thing is, because cars are growing so fast and because Tesla Energy is actually growing faster, those smaller income streams, basically from an investor perspective, are pretty trivial. I want to say, and I made a video where I thought supercharger network would eventually be very large and very significant, but I think the usage of the supercharger network is not as big as I thought when I did that video. And so they are profitable, but just the volume of revenue just isn't there compared to the cars and the energy. Oh, thank you, Ken. I would love to debate channels, but I'm not big enough to debate channels. So, all right, so let's move on from there. And I wanted to talk about, let me see what I have next. Oh, for the earnings call. There's certain big things I'm looking for the earnings call that I want to address. So this is going to be on the second chart. I forget what page it is. There's a chart that has financial numbers, and there's a chart that has sort of numbers, like performance numbers. You can see here solar deployed and storage deployed. And you can see that solar deployed has been kind of flat, like 94 megawatts. Storage deployed has been rising in the last few quarters, and because the Lathrop Megapack factory is now online and running, I think we're going to see this number, the second number here, the 2100, I think we're going to see that number grow. So how big does it get? They have said that they expect Tesla Energy to grow 150 to 200% a year. I don't know whether they're including solar in that. I don't know when solar gets unlocked. I think we're really waiting for Powerwall, the next generation Powerwall, to be revealed. When the next generation Powerwall is revealed, I think we're going to see a marketing push to sell more solar, and they're probably going to shift to more panels than tiles. I think there's a question coming about tiles, or I think there's a question in the Say Technologies thing about the solar roof tiles. I think the panels are just much more likely to scale in a viable manner. So this is something to watch for. Do we see significant growth here? I'm expecting storage deployed to be 3,000, which would translate to 12 gigawatt hours per year, at a 12 gigawatt hour a year run rate, which is far below zero-sum games. He thinks they're at 40 gigawatt hours a year already. They're not at 40 gigawatt. That's not the way Tesla works. They ramp. It takes 12 to 18 months to ramp. So this 1,000 was probably from Lathrop. And, the additional 1,000 between those 2 years. So you expect Lathrop to do another 1,000 more. That's my gut hunch that we're going to see. Are we going to see 3,000 megawatt hours or 3 gigawatt hours here? I think we are. If it's bigger, that's really good news. If it's smaller, it's not panic time. And are we going to finally see solar grow? And, my hope is that March 1st, they're going to unveil the next generation Powerwall. I don't think they're going to do it at this earnings call. So that's one. The other big thing to watch for is I think it's page 7 of do I have the doc? I don't have the document up anymore. It's roughly page 7. This reports on all the factories that Tesla has. I keep hearing people talking about Tesla Semi being produced in Texas. No, it's being produced in Nevada. It's right on the report. It's being produced in Nevada. There's no plan that I'm aware of to produce Tesla Semi in Texas. It's being produced in Nevada. It's being produced in Nevada. It's being produced in Nevada. Unless this changes, right? So this chart tells you where we are. We see that they're expecting Model S and Model X production capacity to be 100,000. Now, are they going to increase that? I think there's a decent sized market for. I don't think that S and X are important for the long term future of Tesla, the company. I actually think at some point they'll be phased out, or I even think that Tesla should create a luxury division for Model S and X and Roadster. I've heard people say, Roadster is going to be this year. Well, Roadster is still listed as in development. So Semi's in early production, Roadster's in development. Unless something changes, Roadster's not coming this year. It's just not a priority. Roadster, Model S, and Model X are not a priority. I would love to see Tesla spin off a luxury division and sell Roadster and S and X in a luxury division, because they just don't fit with the mission of the company anymore. And they are used. They're for people who love cool cars. They're important, and you can still have it connected to the Tesla brand. And maybe it doesn't make sense, but I just feel like if you took a few engineers, you separated out an engineer. I just think fundamentally the thing is Model Y and the robotaxi vehicle are the future of the company, and they're so much more important for the mission. So it's not compact. It's the Roadster. I think it's going to be a subcompact. I think it's going to be the size of a Corolla. So anyway, we need to look at these numbers. Like, we know that Shanghai is producing at a run rate of over 1 million a year. So why is it listed at greater than 750,000? Right? That number should be up. Berlin's greater than 250,000. Texas greater than 250,000. Those factories will get to 500,000 each for Model Y, and then Cybertruck will be added to that. Semi may have a number listed, right? So that's something to look forward to. And then, do we see the California numbers go up, particularly Model 3 and Model Y? Are those numbers going to go up? Because it seemed like they were targeting 800,000. So this is 650,000 total here. It seemed like they were shooting for 800,000 out of Fremont. Are we going to see that number go up? These are the certain things that I look for. I'm less focused on, and I should say, sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. One other thing. Oh, there's two other things. One is, what's the revenue for the year? I'm projecting $82 billion in revenue for the year. Is it higher than that? Is it lower than that? Is it close to that? I think that's going to be roughly the number. That translates to dollars per gigawatt hour or dollars per kilowatt hour for the battery revenue model. Very clear, by the way, that with the latest price changes, Tesla was getting $800 a kilowatt hour for products. They're down, I think, below $700 a kilowatt hour now. So the battery revenue model has to be adjusted for, okay, we've definitely seen now, it may go back up. It definitely goes back up when FSD take rate goes up. When certain things happen, when solar kicks in, solar is zero. There's no gigawatt hours. There's no batteries in solar. So if solar really starts to ramp, that's a big boost to dollars per kilowatt hour. But right now, that revenue number is an indication of and I think that we're going to see it's about $800 a kilowatt hour for the year 2022. But I'm projecting for the year 2023 right now, we're going to see revenue per kilowatt hour about $700 instead of $800. And what does that translate to? Well, it depends on how many gigawatt hours of batteries they use. But I think if we're going to grow at 50%, we're 150 gigawatt hours. These are rough growth numbers. And I think we may see more than that, right? Because I'm expecting the vehicle growth to be substantially more. I'm expecting Tesla Energy to grow faster. So if we did 100 gigawatt hours roughly in 2022, and I think it was more like 105, and we should see 160, 170, even 180 gigawatt hours of batteries used, and that leads to a much higher revenue number for 2023. The margins may be lower, but we'll see about that. So there's going to be a lot of talk about margins. Let's dive into Say Technologies let me look in the chat really quick. How is Lithium Refinery going to help Tesla? Will they sell refined lithium to battery makers? No, they're going to sell lithium to themselves. They're producing lithium for their own. Tesla is planning to produce, according to Drew Baglino in the Q3 investor call, planning to produce 1,000 gigawatt hours of battery cells in the United States by 2030. They're going to need all the lithium they can get. The Lithium Refinery is lithium for Tesla's batteries. To see, will Semi penetrate the market? Semi should do really, really well. How many engineers to make a single cast Tesla? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't really understand the question. I think there's a single piece casting for an entire Tesla. That's such a big question. I don't know how to answer that, Mark. Just looking really quick. Will the release of the robotaxi be like the iPhone release, a new paradigm for mobility with enormous demand? Yes. Well, it's going to be. They have to price when they finally go live with robotaxi. Oh, sorry. Let me just. Peter asked this question before. Do I strongly disagree with Randy Kirk's 2.5 million production estimate for 2023? Yeah, I don't want to say it's impossible, and I think the radical reduction in price is an indication that Tesla may be producing vehicles faster than we thought. But they were at the run rate they were at the end of the year was 40,000 a week, roughly, which translates to 2 million a year. Growth would have to be really fast to get beyond 3 million a year vehicles for run rate at the end of the year 2023. And even if you got to 3 million at the end of the year, the curve would indicate you'd have less than 2.5 million. So they'd have to get to 3.2 or 3.3 million run rate by the end of the year. I'm not saying it's impossible. I personally don't see it. I don't think Cybertruck's going to ramp that quick. I think there's certain limits on how much you can produce out of Fremont. I don't know if Shanghai's near its limit. So I probably disagree with Randy on that. Raymond Chen says 4680 currently uses nickel, lithium if they add that to the chemistry. So all the batteries use lithium. Nickel is one cathode and iron is another type of cathode. They both use lithium. The lithium iron phosphates use less lithium, but they have less energy density. So I don't really have a strong opinion. I want to shift away from talking about things like what was the earnings per share for this quarter, or what was the earnings per share for this year. I want to focus less on the stock. I'm gonna have to talk about the stock, but I'm much more interested in the company, the growth of the company, the long-term success of the company. I think those questions are a lot more important. Oh, about Mexico, I think the stuff they're going to build in Mexico will be supplying things to the Giga Austin. I don't think that's a new factory. I don't think that's a Gigafactory. And do I think they'll announce multiple Gigafactories on March 1? I think so, but I'm not sure. All right, so let me go back to... Okay, I want to cover the Say Technologies question. So retail investors can submit questions and vote on questions at Say Technologies. I'm not able to vote. I use Fidelity for my brokerage account, and there's some sort of connectivity issue between Say Technologies and Fidelity right now that's not working. I messaged a contact at Tesla to ask to let him know about it, but that's probably not going to change. So I might not get my vote in before the meeting. We'll see. So the first question: after recent price cuts, analysts released expectations about gross margin. Where do you see average selling price and gross margins after the price cuts? Well, it's pretty clear that average selling price is going to drop about $5,000 to $10,000. And then gross margins are going to fall about $5,000 to $10,000, but their cost of manufacturing is going down. As they scale Texas and Berlin, the cost of goods sold of the factory on the vehicle goes down. So they are seeing some positives some positives are happening on the cost side. The cost of supplies is going down a little bit as inflation. There has been a reversal in some commodities that their prices have come down. We'll see how long that lasts. And then how do they account? That's the question I don't see anybody asking is how are they going to account for the tax credits for the batteries and the battery modules? Do they account for them in cost of goods sold? Probably not. They probably account from the tax line. So the gross margin might not fully reflect the market. Because if you think about effective gross margin, if you're going to save, let's say, I think it's about $3,700 on a Model Y long range. The value of the tax credit for the batteries, cells, and the module, $45 a kilowatt hour times 82 kilowatt hours, it works out to something like $3,700. So that effectively reduces the cost of goods sold by $3,700, but they're not going to account for it that way. So the margins might appear lower, but the effective margin is actually not as badly affected as you might think. And then you have the regular tax credit, which Tesla doesn't get. Somebody asked about the solar roof product. What does Tesla learn from this? What changes do you foresee in future solar roof versions to increase scale? I think that they've decided that solar roof is too complicated. They're just charging. I actually just talked to somebody who was talking to Tesla about doing a solar roof in the neighborhood where I own a home. The roofs are very complicated. Solar roof tile is not great for roofs that are very complicated. If you have a really simple roof, it's easier to do. If there's fewer things sticking up through the roof or nothing sticking up through the roof, and it's just one straight surface, it's easier to do solar roof tile. If you have a complex roof, which most higher-end homes have complex roofs, it doesn't work, and solar panels make more sense. Solar panels are also more efficient. They generate more electricity per square foot of panel or square inch of panel. That's my impression. I could be wrong. So I think the plan right now is to work with high-end builders to have them design homes where the roofs are designed for solar tile from the get-go. So we'll see solar roof appearing on new high-end homes. That's my gut guess. I think I've seen some hints of that. Let me just address Mark Plot asked, why would Lucid build a factory in Saudi Arabia when number one isn't complete? Because the Saudis are paying for it. I don't know. I think Lucid fails this year, but if the Saudis keep pumping money in, who knows? I'm wondering why the Saudis just don't take it private, just buy out all the other shareholders. I think they would do that. Please provide a detailed explanation of where you are on the 4680 ramp. This is for Tesla, obviously. What are the current roadblocks? When do you expect to scale to 10,000 vehicles a week? They've told us in the previous investor call that they were tripling 4680 production every quarter. So if they were doing enough for 1,000 vehicles a week last quarter, or I think it was in December, they said they were at 1,000 vehicles a week. They should be at 3,000 vehicles a week sometime this quarter and 9,000 vehicles a week sometime next quarter. So this is Q1, so they should be close to 10,000 vehicles a week, 4680 cell production by the end of Q2, and then Q3 they should hit it, which is a good timing because we're going to need a lot more cells for Cybertruck, and Semi will at some point switch over to 4680. Anonymous Retail, is Cybertruck production still on track for mid-year? Cybertruck question will never die. We'll see what the answer is. I think that it seems like they're very much on pace with, we've seen the Gigapress being installed or being assembled in the Gigafactory. So it's very likely that's happening, the 9,000-ton Gigapress, which I think Elon said is for Cybertruck. What is the current production and future 2-year forecast of Tesla Energy Powerwall Megapack Tesla Virtual Power? Well, if we're expecting 3x or 150 to 200% growth a year, if they did 8 gigawatt hours of energy storage in 2022, we should expect up to 24 gigawatt hours of energy storage for 2023. And then tripling again would get you to 72. So, there's a shot at more than 50 gigawatt hours, maybe 70 gigawatt hours in 2024. And by my numbers, energy storage does not become greater than 10% of Tesla revenue until maybe 2025, even though it's growing fast. That's my read of it. Maybe I'm wrong. What kind of margins do you expect for the stationary energy storage? Another margin question we're going to see about that. I think I already addressed that. When will Tesla announce production, Cybertruck specs, and pricing? I'm guessing they're going to announce it when the car's ready to be delivered. That's my gut. Since Elon started political influencing, okay, let's address this one. Since Elon started political influencing, polls from Morning Consult and YouGov show Tesla brand favorability declining in 2022 and division along partisan lines. Such brand damage can impact demand. Does Tesla track favorability, and how will any brand damage be mitigated? Okay, so shortly after the Morning Consult BS survey was published, Teslarati reported on another survey that showed Tesla's brand had strengthened dramatically from the previous year. And what I'm going to say is this. There is no solid evidence that there's been any damage to Tesla's brand, and as soon as they lowered prices, they had massive demand for their cars. So presumably all these people who hate Elon are still willing to buy the cars if you give them a big discount. And my own take is this stuff is overstated. People within the Tesla community who like to blame Elon for everything are blaming Elon for everything. And, the article in Forbes magazine, the author who wrote that article is very clearly anti-Tesla, has this article not that long ago bashing Cybertruck as environmentally unsound. One survey, like how many other surveys were done that didn't show that? Did the reporter, when you see one survey like that, if you were a good journalist, you would go out and look at other companies that are surveying brands and you would see if they're getting the same results. And my gut hunch is he did. He didn't get the answer he wanted, so he just ran with the one survey and didn't bother telling his audience that the other surveys showed the opposite, because Teslarati showed the opposite days later. And the people who love to blame Elon for everything, it's confirmation bias. If you've formed the belief that Elon is damaging the brand, and then you see a survey that says that Elon's damaging the brand, you just want to believe the survey. You don't ask questions like, well, wait a minute, is this journalist fair to Tesla? Wait a minute. What research did the journalist do to verify that this was reliable? Is there any direct evidence of this, or is this, it was just very, very thin. And I had a conversation with Dave Lee about that. So check my channel for the video where I had that conversation with Dave Lee. Maybe I think I put that on the Locals platform instead of on YouTube. I'm not sure about that. Okay. Elon has previously said FSD Hardware 4 will most likely come first in Cybertruck. Is that still the current plan? Do you expect there to be an upgrade path for Hardware 3 cores to Hardware 3 cars to Hardware 4? I don't think he's going to answer that question. That's a March 1st question. Zach, but then you never know with Elon. Zach, when do you think Tesla insurance will become a big enough revenue source to warrant providing more details on the financials of that business so investors can compare it to other insurance companies? It's just small. That's what we talked about this earlier. Like, if you look at the Tesla financials, vehicles are huge, energy is growing, everything else is just small. And I personally think that insurance goes away long term, as once the cars are self-driving, then there aren't crashes. What are you insuring? I think the insurance goes to zero at that point. Once the cars don't crash, what are we insuring? I mean, you have, vandalism or, hailstorms coverage or something like that, but that's much less expensive. So the revenue for the insurance is initially going to be somewhat significant, but not on the scale of Tesla anyway. And then eventually, when the cars are self-driving, the insurance value goes to zero or near zero or effectively zero. Where should Tesla build the next megapack factories? How many are needed on each continent? We very clearly need more in the United States, and that's probably going to be first. And the incentives of the Inflation Reduction Act are going to push Tesla to do more in the United States because the benefits are here. There's story that Europe is going to adopt something similar, a similar tax break or similar benefits for people producing stuff in Europe. If that happens, then maybe we see megapack factories in Europe. We'll see how that goes. But I think for now, right now, short term, massive reward for doing stuff in the United States. I think we're going to see more stuff in the United States. Last question from Say. Many customers want to upgrade their new models, but the FSD price is holding them back. Okay, that's few customers are being held back by the FSD price. Right? The take rate in the United States is like 10 or 20%. So the vast majority of Tesla customers aren't jumping at the bit to buy FSD. I purchased a 6,000 but won't trade in my car because new FSD costs 15,000. We allow owners to transfer the license since it doesn't raise the value of old car. Okay, so this question has been asked 1,000 times before. Zach Kirkhorn said they do take into account the value of FSD when they accept a car for trade-in. May not be as much as you want it to be, but they do accept it. And no, they're not going to let you transfer your license. They've handled this consistently throughout. They want more FSD licenses bought. Some of the people who bought FSD before will buy it again. And if they give it to you for free, then you're not going to buy it again, and there'll be fewer FSD licenses out there. That's the decision they made. So let me leave that. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's see questions in the chat. I know. Sorry, I wanted to talk briefly about SpaceX. I don't have a lot to say about SpaceX, but it looks like Starship is. If you watch the NASA Spaceflight Channel, if you watch Every Astronaut, Marcus House, Scott Manley. I was confusing. I was going to say Marcus Brownlee. Marcus House, Scott Manley. I don't know why. Check out their channels. Look at the developments. A lot of great stuff happening with Starship. I think we're about to do a static fire of the Starship booster, and 33 engines. That's going to be insane. Orbital launch maybe early March. Okay, so Electrek is not sold on Semi. Can you comment? I generally don't read Electrek, so I haven't seen that. I think Semi is a game-changing product. I think anybody who doesn't see Electrek, doesn't see Semi, is missing like a massive story. I have a friend who drives Tesla Semi as a test driver for Tesla and says it's absolutely, and he's a diesel, he had long history of driving diesel trucks. He thinks it's absolutely amazing and it's worth like $500,000. We don't know what the sales price is, it's crazy. Let's see. Will Tesla's price war help sink an OEM by year end? That's a good question, Jim. Tesla's price cut. I have a video about Tesla's price war. The cut is so dramatic. So just to be clear, if you missed this, Tesla lowered prices in the United States. They lowered prices in China. They lowered prices in Europe. With the IRA tax credit, a Model 3 standard range is now competitively priced with a Toyota Camry V6. The Model Y long range is now competitively priced with a Highlander. Not the base model Highlander, but the premium edition Highlanders. And Teslas are premium vehicles comparable to or better than the premium versions of Toyota Camry and Toyota Highlander. And forget about, Lexus RX. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's shopping. He just ordered a Model Y. And he looked at the Lexus RX 350 or whatever the latest Lexus RX is, and the Model Y has much more cargo capacity. And it's a much nicer car, and he's getting it for less money. So this is devastating for Toyota, and I think it's devastating for Toyota. I don't know who takes the biggest hit. I don't know who goes out of business first. I think that Volkswagen is making progress on their electric vehicles. I think Ford is making a little bit of progress on electric vehicles. Hyundai and Kia are making progress. The challenge for other EV makers is you have to make your EV price competitive with gas cars. You can't make you've got to figure out, how do I make these things price competitive with gas cars? Because as soon as you're competitive with gas cars, it doesn't matter if you're better than Tesla. You just have to be better than gas cars. So will it sink an OEM by year end? I think the end of this year is too soon. I would say 2024 at the earliest. And then, are they going to get bailed out by their governments? Probably. Chris Anderson says, did you see for for Alex Electric and his continuous problems with his ID4? Can't understand how he dislikes Elon so much and won't drive a Model Y. I didn't see that. I have seen other YouTubers who drive other vehicles, other EVs. They seem unhappy with their other EVs. I'm aware of that, but I'm not aware of this particular. I don't watch a lot of channels, honestly. I watch Dave Lee, I watch Rob Maurer, I love Stephen Mark Ryan, but I don't watch him. Just like, I think he says the same thing every time I watch him. Like I said that, or I was just going to say that it's like watching myself, only better looking. I love him and I recommend him. I can't watch him myself. I watch Limiting Factors, my absolute favorite channel that's out there. I watch channels I learn from, and I love Steven, but I don't learn from him because he's saying the same things I'm saying. We're getting the same news. Jim White had some celebrity griped online that she will sell her Tesla because she's mad at Elon. Everybody else said, so what? Yeah, I mean, people are grandstanding all the time. I don't have time for that. Hoping Elon would follow up his foundation to build out a solar farm with 10,000 square miles. He never said he was going to build a solar farm with 10,000 square miles in the desert. He never said that. He said that that's what you would need, not that he was going to do it. It's probably more practical to do it other ways. Which of these will Starship launch? Cybertruck, Semi, or USS Gerald Ford? Well, not the USS Gerald Ford. Probably not the Semi. I don't think they're going to launch a Cybertruck either. We'll see. John Bay says Tesla housing is still in its early stages. Allset has gone silent. Small housing site built in Vegas. I've never been that impressed with Allset Housing, which is Tesla spelled backwards. I thought they had a project in Texas. There's no heat pump yet. I don't think that's a sales pitch. I don't know. Gigapress for Shanghai or someone else. Oh, so there's a report of a 9,000 ton Gigapress that's being shipped to Asia. So it seems likely that Tesla is the customer for the 9,000 ton Gigapress. Is it going to Shanghai? Is it going to? I believe that Tesla might be building. The next factory might be in Osaka. With Panasonic building a 4680 factory in Osaka. I don't think Cybertruck has a market in Japan. But that's a tough one. Maybe we'll learn that on March 1st. Probably not. Lee is hung up on lack of a 4680 RAM. You just have to listen to the investor call. Drew said they're tripling 4680 production every quarter. What do you need? I think they're doing fine. I can't pull Lee, Tesla economist, back from the ledge. I never watched Lee. I never thought he was that interesting. I never thought he was that original. I thought he was a bad copy of me and Steven. Will I be selling out of Ross's business? I own a small chunk of Ross Gerber's fund, and I'm not bothering to sell it. Tesla's recent videos on YouTube have been great. The heat pump video might be a clue on home HVAC. I do think that we might see something about home HVAC. I just saw an ad. I have it right here. Just saw an ad for a heat pump. All right, let me see if I can. Yeah, heat pump system. I just saw this ad today in the circular that came to my house. A 2-ton heat pump system for $48.60. How much? I don't know how powerful. That's probably more powerful than a Model Y heat pump. But Tesla could deliver a heat pump for way less than $48.60. I thought I said $46.80 for a second. They should price it at $46.80 just for fun. So I think there's a tremendous market potential for Tesla to say, you know what, we're going to produce heat pump systems in massive volume. We're going to sell them for $2,500 instead of $5,000. And there's a huge opportunity to make huge gains in the in that sector. But I don't think it's happening that soon. Do I think price cuts will increase Tesla market share and bring in the non-liberals as Tesla owners? I think it will increase market share, but what's going to increase market share is just producing more cars. What will the price of the single motor standard range Y be in the United States? As far as I know, there's no plan to make a single motor standard range Model Y. I don't think Tesla needs to do that. Mark Potocznik says Boxable heading to 1 per minute out of their new factory. I have not seen that. I haven't been following Boxable. I'm hopeful that they're successful. I don't buy it, but where do they? No, they don't have that huge heat pump in the Y. Did I see Sandy Monroe's dissection of 4680 battery and how it has less energy density than the Panasonic one as of right now? That was limiting factor already covered that. Limiting factor covered that before Sandy did, and that's true because the can has to be thicker. The walls of the cell have to be thicker to be able to be structural pack, and that's just we're in the first round of 4680 iteration, and we're going to iterate and have a better 4680 soon. The chemistry is going to change and so on. So let's see. Who is better looking? Stephen Mark Ryan is better looking than me. Single motor rear wheel drive Model Y will sink Honda and Toyota's midsize SUV offerings. No, you're missing it. The long range Model Y, the existing long range all wheel drive Model Y is a better car for a lower price than a Toyota Highlander. It's a comparable price with the tax credit. It is comparably priced to a Toyota Highlander V6. They don't need a less expensive vehicle. The volume that segment opens up is so huge. The total addressable market dropping because the price dropped like 10, 12 grand, and then you took $7,500 off. So they just went into a much larger total addressable market. They don't have to offer a cheaper Model Y anymore. They don't have to. I didn't see Sandy Monroe's recent Tesla talk, so I can't address that. Sandy Monroe thinks Ford will survive because the Lightning is a serious truck. The problem with Ford's F-150 Lightning is, can they manufacture it in a large enough volume, and can they manufacture it without losing money? It may be that their cost of goods sold in the abstract is less, but when you account for the cost of the R&D and the factory, amortizing the factory, I think it's a big money loser for a long time. They have to ramp that thing to hundreds of thousands of vehicles a year, and I don't think they're anywhere close to that. I think there'll ever be a Tesla division for agricultural equipment. If there is, it's down the road a long ways. Philip Mazie says, I'm not sure how not allowing FSD transfers is legal, especially with transferred if buying from Tesla pre-owned. Seems like it'll be challenging for. This has been true for years, and it has. I don't see why that would be. I think it's fully disclosed in the deal when you buy the car. Stays with the car. Look, when you buy another car and it has software built in, you don't get to take the software with your next car. It stays with the car. This doesn't seem that complicated to me. The Tesla price cuts did not kill Arcimoto. What killed Arcimoto, if it's dead, is their failure to produce vehicles in any volume. Okay. If the car gets totaled, does insurance cover FSD? Of course it does. Or does it cover the cost of FSD? I'm not sure the answer to that question. It depends on your car insurance, I suppose. Can I comment on used Tesla market in the next 3 years? How might this impact Tesla sales, etc.? Tesla's cutting prices is putting massive downward pressure on the price of Tesla used cars and other used cars. Did I read the Verge article? It was a transcript of Elon's testimony. No, I don't care about that. Robert Hirsch, don't underestimate yourself, Warren. Some women have an aging balding fetish. Thanks, Robert. I'll touch on dating briefly while I have a few minutes left. I do have a date coming up this coming week that I'm excited about. I'm less focused on trying to date and more focused. I just go out and I go dancing and I go out with friends and I meet people and I make friends, and if something turns into a date at some point, great. But I do have a date coming up this week that I'm a little excited about. I'll try to remain level-headed about things. I think I'm getting a lot more rational. I think divorce and ideas got me a little too pumped up about it. Now I'm kind of chilled out a little bit. Do I have any thoughts on Canoo making an impact on the EV market down the road? I've seen Canoo. They didn't make it. Canoo just didn't make an impression on me. Let's talk about Aptera as well. I didn't watch Ross and Gordon. I can't watch Ross talk and I can't watch Gordon talk. I really can't watch Gordon Johnson talk. I could debate him, but I can't watch somebody else debate him. It's painful to watch Gordon Johnson talk. So Canoe, I just haven't followed Canoe closely enough. People ask me about Aptera a lot. Aptera, as I see it, too expensive. The solar doesn't make sense to me. Company history of failure in the past. I think they went bankrupt once before. Yes, Sandy Monroe's on board, but Sandy was on board with Arcimoto. I was on board with Arcimoto. Gally was on board with Arcimoto. You got to make the cars. You got to make them in volume. You got to make the product. You got to make it in volume. That's a huge challenge for a startup. Will they get there? I don't know. Should interview your past dates online and ask them why they weren't interested. That would be humbling. No, I actually, when I have a date, I follow up with every date, and I just, I do have a brief sort of, like, I guess we call it an exit interview. And I have a pretty good idea what's going on. Honestly, like, half the time it's like they don't make any sense at all, and don't worry about it. Harley or Zero should take over. Arcimoto can't manufacture very fast. Yeah, actually, the Arcimoto Roadster is a really cool looking vehicle, and I could see Harley taking that. That would be kind of cool. Yeah, I just don't see Aptera making sense. The solar panels are going to be a trivial impact. People have this idea that the surface area of a car just isn't enough to generate enough electricity. It just isn't. Will Lucid go bankrupt? Lucid will go bankrupt unless the Saudis appear to be ready to just keep Lucid afloat one way or another. If I was the Saudis at this point, and if you're going to keep it afloat, just buy them out. Does Arcimoto bankruptcy affect your podcar plans? I don't think they filed for bankruptcy yet, for one thing. And no, Arcimoto is doing something different than what I'm doing. Arcimoto is making a vehicle that's fun to drive. I'm making a vehicle that's boring to ride in. And Arcimoto's vehicles were like $18,000, and they were hoping to get it down to $12,000. I'm hoping to get mine in for about $1,000. Just a very different concept. Yeah, no, I can't watch Ross and Gordon. Come on. Don't mention Tesla on a date. What if the date brings up Tesla? Actually, the date this week is as I think of fans, so we'll see. You can't have functional solar on an Aptera. There's just not enough surface area on a car to generate meaningful solar energy. You're just, and then the solar cells you put on the vehicle are going to be less efficient than solar panels. Solar panels are highly efficient. Whenever you do something funky with solar, you put it on a car, you make it look right or whatever, you're impairing the efficiency of the solar cells. It's just really tough. Bendable solar, you just don't have enough surface area in the car to make a difference. If you put solar on a car, maybe it'll power your Sentry mode. Honestly, like if I had solar on my X, it would power Sentry mode. That's about all it would power. Did you only date me for my Model X? True, false. Good. What if the date hates Tesla? That's a potential problem. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up now. I'm going to be going on the Daily Lie, which is warrenredlick.locals.com. There's a link in the top of the chat, and there's a link in the top of the video description. I'll put a link here again. That link. The link in the chat again. I'm going to be talking about what it means to be a libertarian. This video is free. When you get to the page, if you aren't sure how to be, if you're not already a non-paying member of the channel, I think you click sign up. And you just have to give your email address, and then you can watch the video. I think that's how it works. What if your date is all gross and you shine up in your ex? All right, well, anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Thank you especially to the moderators. Please support me here. Please join us on Locals in a minute. Support me on Locals. Support me on Patreon. Support me as a YouTube channel member. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. Insanely gigantic. People will ask you about it. If a woman asks you, what does that mean? You say, well, it's about the future of a world of self-driving cars and the value it generates. Why? Did you think it means something else? Oh, did you think it was a sex meaning? I like the way you think. We should talk more. That hasn't worked for me yet, so I'm not sure that's actually going to work. But I keep trying whatever works. So thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Jim, Mark, and Mark. And we'll talk to y'all soon.